Join Gator great Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports.
Drinking warm water before
Find us on
bed
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite
Thousands of
podcasts.
people are apparently regaining
Or watch us
control of their
live at
blood
8
sugar
a.m.
every night
on
as they
Facebook,
sleep
YouTube,
by
and
adding
Twitter.
one unusual ingredient to a glass of warm water before bed. If you're type 2 or pre-diabetic, struggling to lose weight, stressing over constant monitoring, or just sick of feeling tired all the time,
it's a live
then pay
edition
close
of PodUp with
attention,
Matthews in the
because a
morning from
recent
the
study
Crime
out of a top
Prevention
German
Security
university
System
suggests
Studios,
that high
loads
blood
of
sugar
serve you
levels
small
may have
enough
less to do with
care.
a lack of
Monday,
insulin,
hope everybody had a
family
great
history,
weekend. Got a lot
or
to
poor
talk
eating
about.
habits
Obviously,
than
we're
first
going to
thought.
recap
They
the
found that
NFL
the real
draft.
root cause appears to
Baseball
be a
gets
buildup
one
of
out
a
of
sticky proteinous
3 against
mucus,
Arkansas.
blocking
Had a
the
chance
area
to
where
win 2 out
sugar
of
should
3.
drain out of the kidneys,
We'll talk about
which
the
over
little
time forces
play
more and
that
more to
center
collect up
fielder
in the
made.
bloodstream,
And in
resulting in
softball,
uncontrollable weight
rallies
gain,
in the
frequent
7th
energy
inning, put
crashes,
7 up against
and
Georgia,
ultimately the dreaded
wins
type 2
that series.
diagnosis.
They were
But
one
most
strike
importantly,
away,
these same
3-run homer,
researchers
and then the
revealed how we can
floodgates
break
open.
down
So
this sticky buildup
they
just
play
by
the
following a
lady
simple
semis
bedtime
Wednesday
routine,
in Tallahassee.
which they claim quickly
They host
unclogs and clears
A&M,
out the
who
sugar
is
drain,
one game ahead of
restoring
them for
normal
second
function once
place.
and for all.
So they still have a chance to win the SEC.
It's been an exciting breakthrough,
And then
with thousands of men and women now
baseball has
reporting of
Tennessee
suddenly
rolling into
being able
town
to
this weekend.
stabilize their blood
As
sugar,
Andy says
ditch
here,
their
Wyatt Langer's
medications,
first major
and
league
shed
home
pounds of
run
stubborn
was
body
an
fat
inside the
that they'd
Parker.
struggled with
I would
for
have
years.
never guessed that.
Just tap
But
watch now
it was
below
pretty cool
to
to
skip
see.
straight to
Let's
a
go to
free
the Titan
special
Tomorrow
video.
Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, and this guy's brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life at Campus Credit Union. Mike Morgan, good morning. How you doing, my man?
Good morning, Shane. I'm doing well. It's an honor to be in the leadoff spot. I just hope I won't screw it up. A lot of pressure.
No, you're good. Before we jump into the NFL draft, because I know you've watched it all, or you're still Devo. You what you call it? You recorded it, and you may still watch it. But I want to ask you. You're a baseball guy as well.
Sure.
Did you see the play the Arkansas kid made?
I did.
I've never seen it work.
Seen that. Yeah, I've seen plenty of deeks, what they call
Yeah.
deeks. You decoy somebody. You pretend you've got the ball, but you don't. You pretend you threw it over to first base, but you don't. There was an infamous deke in the World Series when you and I were kids in the 80s that Miami, I think it was Miami, Wichita State. And I can't remember which team pulled it off, but somebody in your audience will remember exactly what I'm talking. It's one of the best fake throws to first that I've ever seen, and it completely fooled the runner. So, deeks are part of the game, but I've never seen that where a center fielder literally, as the ball is coming toward him in the air, fakes to have already caught it and thrown it. So what that did was, of course, once the base runner realized, oh, wait a minute, that was not the catch. So then he had to go tag up again, and that forced him to be way late to home plate. That was a new one. That was a 10 for creativity.
Yeah, it's just kind of been how the Gator baseball season has gone. They pitch well, they can't hit. They hit well, they can't pitch. But at least they took one. They got one game. So big series this weekend against Tennessee at home. We'll see how that turns out. Mike, the NFL draft, man. You live part of the year in Atlanta.
Oh my goodness.
I still can't figure out what they did and why they did it.
Well, they embarrassed themselves immensely. And my buddy Chuck Oliver, who I guess is on a station in Gainesville, they syndicate his college football show. And we do some shows together in Atlanta. And as soon as the pick was made, I texted him, and he had the best line. He said, Mike, the Falcons are just not good at football. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, it makes no sense. And, Fontenot and Raheem Morris, they sat there at a podium and tried to justify it. It's unjustifiable. Even if you think Penix is the best thing since sliced bread, and that is very debatable, then you don't give Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed money. Well, Mike, it's not my money. Okay. Name the last time, Shane, a team had a top 10 pick in the NFL, a top 10 pick where everybody knew the design for that top 10 pick was to not play for 2 years minimum. That's what they're saying. We just took a top 10 pick, and we plan on sitting him for minimum 2 years. And if Kirk does what he's supposed to do and stays healthy, it could be 4 years. It makes no sense. There's rumors, a lot of rumors that they were actually looking for somebody else at a different position, and then panic set in, and they wound up just taking Michael Penix. I'm good friends with a guy, Brian Baldinger, who actually played under Spurrier, was his offensive coordinator at Duke, and played for years in the NFL offensive lineman, and we do a lot of NFL games together. And he tweeted something out 3-4 weeks ago. He called it pool premonitions. And he's in the pool because he's got a place in Lauderdale. And he says, I'm feeling my pool premonition is the Falcons are going to go with a quarterback. I immediately texted him. I said, Brian, you're crazy. They just signed Kirk Cousins. He goes, Mike, I got a source. Well, his source is Arthur Blank. And they loved Michael Penix, but I think they thought they would get cute, maybe trade down or pick up another pick, not take him at 8. It makes no sense. The Falcons were the laughing stock of the draft. I hope Michael Penix turns out to be outstanding. He's got 2 shoulder surgeries, 2 knee surgeries, and by the time he starts his first NFL game, he'll probably be at least 27 years old. But go ahead and justify the pick.
Yeah. I saw a tweet where somebody tweeted, do the general managers think this is a fantasy draft with all the quarterbacks being taken? Just your thoughts. I mean, we all knew that the top 3 would go really, really early, but I was shocked at the other ones.
Yeah. The other ones were classic cases of you overdraft because you desperately need a quarterback. And that's the new trend in the NFL, Shane. It used to be you didn't take a player at any position, 10, 20, 30 picks before he should be going, before his talent is slated appropriately. Now, the feeling is if you really are desperate for a quarterback, and we know this, Shane, if you don't have a good starting quarterback in the NFL, you're not going anywhere. You're just not. You could be stacked at every other position. If quarterback's a liability, you are, to use an NBA term, you're a lottery pick. So that's what happened. And obviously, like in the case of the Vikings, they lose Kirk Cousins, so that you knew they had to draft a quarterback. A lot of people thought the Raiders had to draft a quarterback. Fans, we saw him at Auburn, like, he ain't that good. He did get better at Oregon, and the athleticism is unmistakable. It's just he's got a long way to go in terms of being a passer in the NFL.
Yeah, and you brought it up last week, which I think is fascinating. Was the 2021 had all those quarterbacks taken in the first round? Trevor Lawrence is the only one still with his team. I feel like that's what's going to happen in 3 years with this crew.
You could be 100% right, and would not shock me at all, Shane. The challenge is guessing which one of these guys makes it and which one of them is a complete flop. And I would note, what, fair or unfair, you know this, some of these guys will fail because they've got nothing around them. Like, I'm not convinced Mac Jones is an NFL quarterback, but I know this. He had garbage around him. He had no receivers to throw to. He had no line to block. He had no backs to run. And even for New England, they didn't have a very elite defense like we're used to seeing. So he was destined to fail. And where these teams go, I mean, the Pat Mahomes example is the perfect case. Pat Mahomes would have been good no matter where he went. He wouldn't have been sitting on 3 Super Bowls if he didn't go 10 to Kansas City. The fact that he fell 9 slots and didn't go to, say, a Chicago Bears. The fact that the moment he arrived on campus in Kansas City, he's got a Hall of Fame tight end, he's got the cheetah, and he's got the best play caller that I've ever seen in the NFL, and Andy Reid. Like, that's a hell of a situation to walk into. What do you think you're walking into right now if, you're Drake May and you're walking into New England and you're looking around like, good Lord, you guys actually, this is NFL? Like, do you have any talent over here?
Yeah. The Drake May, I think, has got a chance to be pretty damn good, but they need to add some pieces to the puzzle to help him. Christopher on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, Mike, your thoughts on Ricky Pearsall going to the 49ers?
Oh, love it. Love it. First off, I mean, like everybody in your audience, I love Ricky Pearsall. You mentioned a number of times, Shane, like he's one of the most gifted wide receivers to come through Gainesville, and that's saying something. Obviously, the NFL scouts agreed. in a stocked, I don't know if I've ever seen a deeper wide receiver draft, but there were those three guys, Pearsall, all SEC, Pearsall, Leggett, and McConkey. I thought they were all going to go around that in the same area, right? Like around 30 to 38 or something like that. And they all did. And I think they're all going to be good for different reasons. Like Leggett is just a physical freak. Lad McConkey is the ultimate slot guy that's going to be, if they find him a quarterback. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Lad went to, help me out,
Lad is
Shane.
going to the Chargers.
Oh, well, yeah, he he is going to put up massive numbers there.
Yep.
Herbert is going to fall in love with him right away. And Pearsall in the 49ers offense with Debo, there's been some questions whether or not Ayuk is going to get traded. I think that window is passed. So, I mean, you've got Kittle at tight end, you've got Debo, you've got Ayuk, you've got McCaffrey, and then here's Pearsall. I mean, he is going to be a major, major weapon for that offense. No, I think he's going to be terrific, and that's a great landing spot. Anytime you're a wide receiver and you get drafted with a team that's already got talent in place and already has a quarterback, that just made your life a heck of a lot better.
Ben on the Titan MR text line says Thursday night's draft drew 12.3 million people, the second highest college football rating. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. The NFL it's indestructible, Shane. It's Teflon. Everything they put on right now has just millions and millions of eyeballs.
Yeah. Another text here on the Titan MR text line. This is from Andy. He says, Mike, does Jacoby Brissett start in front of Drake May game 1 next year? That seems to be the talk in New England. I can see that.
Game 1, maybe game 3, maybe game 5, and then I don't know. Brissett's just a placeholder, and he knows that. He knows that. I mean, he's been a backup now for how many years, and everybody likes his professionalism, and he's got just enough talent and decision making where he can play, but he's not the future, and he hasn't been the future in a long, long time. I maybe I'm just biased because I saw the kid. I mean, we talked to him for an hour a year ago in Chapel Hill. I think that Drake May is going to be very good. But when I listen to some of the talking heads just tee off on him, that's a reach. This guy's overrated. He struggled with this, struggled with that. Again, put on the tape in 2022 when he had an actual receiver in Josh Downs and the line blocked just good enough. That's where Drake May got his stock from. Oh, by the way, he also led the team in rushing. He's very athletic. I hear people say, oh, he's not really quick. This is not Tom Brady. He's got Tom Brady's size. He's actually very athletic. His whole family is athletic. You got basketball players in there. Luke May was on a national championship team, Chapel Hill. I think Drake May in time will be very good, but a lot of people were teeing off on him and lauding some of the other guys. I'm just like, we'll see. 5 years from now, we'll know the answer, but I think Drake's going to be very good.
Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it. We stand by. We got Mike Morgan on the Titan Tomorrow hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tip, and he's brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. We got a text here from William on the Titan Tomorrow text line. It says, Gators with only one player drafted. That shows where the program has been.
My answer to that would be yes and no. Obviously, going back to the tail end of Mullen, like what Florida clearly needs to get back to where they're one of the most talented teams in the country, and they haven't been that in a long time. Now, you could make the argument ETN will be a pro, and he was on the roster last year. Some of the players that transferred out will be maybe a good young wide receiver like a Wilson, somebody like that will be an NFL pro. Maybe Graham Mertz, Shane. Maybe Graham Mertz winds up.
I think Graham Mertz will, if he doesn't get drafted, he will sign a contract. Buck on Facebook Live says he can't believe Kingsley signed a deal with the Lions. Just because a free agent signs a deal doesn't mean anything.
Right.
They have to have bodies for training camps.
Exactly.
But he's going to a good organization now with Dan Campbell running it. But I think I've said this multiple times. I think Graham Mertz can play in the NFL a long time as a
Yeah,
backup.
as a
And there's
backup.
nothing wrong with that. He's a
No.
tremendous teammate. He's got a high IQ of football. Um, he's accurate. I think he will, if he does not get drafted, he will sign with somebody and make the roster.
I totally agree, and there's no reason to think that Graham Mertz, who was good last year in bad circumstances, could only be better this year. If they sure some things up. Now he loses Pearsall, which is obviously huge, but if Graham does even close to what he did last year, I agree. I think he'll have a chance to be on a roster. So, I mean, they're going to have more. We're going to look back and say the 2023 team, as flawed as it was, did have more than one pro on it. But to your listener's point, yeah, it's now, I mean, look, Ole Miss, I think, only had one guy drafted, and they obviously were very good last year. But a lot of their guys either transferred out. A lot of their guys are going to be drafted this year, like a Jackson Dart. Quinshon Junkins went to Ohio State. He's going to be an NFL back in all likelihood. So you can't go just entirely based on that number. But there's no secret. Florida has not had even close to the kind of talent that they did during the heyday. Let's just go back to the Urban Meyer years for an example and look back at those teams, just both sides of the ball. It's like NFL guys all over the place. What has happened? I mean, and then you bring in Billy Napier. Let's face it. I mean, the X's and O's and that resume is fine. But a big part of the reason why you hired him was on the recruiting front, on player acquisition. And then this thing NIL comes along in the portal, and it's like, well, you might be a great recruiter, but it doesn't matter if you're not outspending people for players. So the quote unquote great recruiters of yesteryear, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but it doesn't matter nearly as much, because if you're not winning the bidding war in NIL, you can have a great recruiter as your coach. It's not going to matter. He's going to lose players to other teams.
Yeah, the other thing too is Florida's such a young football team. They didn't have many guys draft eligible.
Exactly. That's
Either.
my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we might be talking in 2 years about a number of those players could be NFL guys, but they weren't draft eligible this year.
Yeah, very true. 31 Ember on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, says the only thing having players drafted means is that you lost those players. I'd rather have no players drafted and Ricky coming back. Well, yeah, I'd love to have Ricky Pearsall coming back, but his eligibility's up. So,
Yeah, I don't know if I entirely follow the logic there. How about this for the perfect scenario? You can have a bunch of guys drafted every year, and then you got a bunch of guys to back them up that are going to be drafted the following year. That's when you've got a dominating program. That's what Alabama has. That's what Georgia has. That's what Florida used to have, and that's what they clearly have lost over the last 10 years. Pick your starting point. They're clearly not in that ball game. So why we get fascinated with questioning coaches and should he be doing the play calling, and what about this call on third down, and why did he punt there, and how about this penalty in the fourth quarter? All that's important, but the biggest obstacle for Florida to me has been, regardless of coach, they just haven't had the players that they used to. They're just not as talented as they used to be, and I can't put my finger on it. Smarter people than me can tell you why that is, but it's unmistakable they haven't had the same level of talent.
agree. However, this team this year is the most talented team on paper that Billy's had, in my opinion. Gary in Memphis wants to know, Mike, out of all the NFL teams, who do you think, in your opinion, had the best draft?
Oh, that's a good one. I tell you, I love what Harbaugh did with the Chargers. So he wants to have his physical label. We're tough now. No more of this finesse stuff. I'm Harbaugh. I eat steel and potatoes for dinner. So he gets Joe Alt, who looks like a 12-year starter at tackle, right? Like he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler. If you noticed, offensive tackle was the premium position in the first round. It wasn't running back. It wasn't defensive line. The offensive tackles were a premium, and several were taken, but none better than Joe Alt. So you get him, and then you get Ladd McConkey to be Herbert's ultimate, slot guy on third down. Where's McConkey at? Nobody's going to guard that guy running a 4.39 and shifty as hell. So I really liked what they were able to do. Philadelphia wins the draft every year. Philadelphia wins the draft every year. They always get proven commodities from big colleges. And then Kansas City, as if Mahomes isn't difficult enough, you get the fastest player in the draft, right? You get the fastest player in the draft at the end of round one just to make defensive coordinators have more nightmares. I thought they all won pretty big.
Yeah. Just your thoughts. I know we've talked about it multiple times about Buffalo. Do you understand what Buffalo was doing and why they did what they did?
Trading out of the first round and then getting
Well,
Keon.
they could have had that receiver that they let Kansas City pick.
Yeah. Or they could have had Xavier Legette, who they traded with the Panthers. And it
Right.
really comes down to we all knew they were going to take a wideout. And I've said this before. I'm a big Josh Allen guy. And when people try and criticize Josh Allen, first off, it seems somewhat personal for some people. Like, you understand he is a freak. Like, and he's not working with what Mahomes has. He doesn't have a Hall of Fame tight end. He doesn't have the weapons that he doesn't have Andy Reid calling plays. He's out there with a undersized, temperamental Stephon Diggs and then scraps. So you let you let Diggs and Gabe Owens go. It's just fine to me. I think they needed to move on from both of those guys. And then you need to stack up wideouts and eventually get hopefully a better tight end. Maybe they believe they've got him. But they made a calculated decision. Keon Coleman from Florida State is going to be better than those guys that they let go in front. I mean, the little guy that he does run a 4.2, but I do think they needed a taller, 50-50 ball kind of guy. I thought they were going to take Legette at 32. And then they basically gave him to the Panthers, traded to the first pick in the second round, and took Keon Coleman. Does Coleman wind up being the best of the bunch? I have no idea. But they clearly thought there was value in getting him. I thought they would take another wideout. I don't think they did, but they've got to get Josh Allen more weapons. Like, you've got a Super Bowl quarterback and a Super Bowl team. If you give him the right weapons, you have not done that completely.
Benjamin on the Titan our text line in Mobile, Alabama wants to know your thoughts on how you thought Nick Saban did.
I saw so I was going back and forth. I thought Nick did great. I was going back and forth, but I love Kuiper. I know a lot of people hate Kuiper. I've been watching the draft since like the early 90s, every one of them. And I grew up with Mel Kiper. And is he wrong on picks? Sure. But I don't need somebody to predict who's going to take who. What I need is a guy that been there, done that, knows how the draft works, and does his homework. And Mel Kiper does all those things. So I was going back and forth between that, and then I'm like, oh, Saban. Let me see that Saban. I thought Saban was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was really, and again, I've mentioned this to people before. People like, Mike, what is he like? Every time I've dealt with him, I've had 4 or 5 games with him. He's outstanding. Couldn't be not now. The last time I had him in 2022, he was a angry, disgusted guy with the way college football was going. That's why I told people, anybody that would listen, I don't think he's going to be doing this much longer. He doesn't like NIL. He doesn't like the portal. But as an analyst, he's smart. He's got a personality. He's got a sense of humor. I thought his breakdowns of players were better than anybody that ESPN or anybody else had to offer.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. Live a healthier lifestyle with our bold, flavorful smoothies and our amazing food. Tropical smoothie, when you eat better, you feel better. We got Mike Morgan for a few more minutes here. Daryl on the Titan our text line asked, Mike, what did you think about the Jaguars draft?
So they went offense in the first
A lot of
round.
LSU guys.
Did they go Brian Thomas? Was that their first pick?
They took him and they took the defensive tackle in the second round.
Okay, yeah. So I thought they might go defense in the first round, but I mean, I can't argue that they need to give Trevor another weapon. And Thomas look, depending on who you talk to, some people thought Brian Thomas was as talented as anybody in the draft. Like, I still think, here's my lukewarm take. I think Odunze is going to be the best wide receiver in the draft, even better than Harrison. I could be wrong, but that's just my feeling. Yeah, I mean, look, you you could not have gone wrong with a certain group of wide receivers, and Brian Thomas was in that group. So right away, he gives Trevor Lawrence a threat that he didn't have. And then of course they had to do some work on the defense. I think overall, considering where they were selecting, their picks made sense. Time will tell, but I was in favor of the first few guys that they took. I know that just watching it live.
You talked about Mel Kiper. Got me thinking. I know that he's got people helping him with stats and all that kind of stuff that they hand to him when so-called guy is drafted. But he really watches so much freaking tape on
Yeah.
these players. When does he start? Is he like starting right now? Does he
He
take
can,
a week off?
no, typically what Mel does is, and there was a time like when I was working at RUF, we had Mel Kiper in the Rolodex. And he was big, but he wasn't that big. I could pick up the phone at the student station and have him on for 10 minutes to talk about all the Gator prospects, and he would do it. And he would
Hmm.
just rattle it off like it was nothing. But in the next day or two, he'll have his big board, his top 10 for the 2025 draft. So he's already got a head start, I guarantee you.
Well, I saw one on Twitter yesterday. I don't know who put it out there, but do you know who the projected number one overall pick is next year?
Uh,
Quarterback?
it's not Carson Beck, is it?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
Shadir Sanders.
oh, please, please. I don't see that, but hey, maybe so. Maybe
Yeah.
so. He's a talent. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that.
He's not the first pick in the draft, though. You
I'd
know,
be shocked if you. And
yeah.
plus, there's a lot of people that are gonna do a little. You're talking about a guy who was selling merch at the half online before he blew a 29-point lead in the second half. Some NFL GMs are not going to think fondly of that, whereas a Jaden Daniels, who's every bit as talented, if not more, was the ideal worker and athlete at LSU during his time there.
Yeah. I saw a picture of last year's spring game at Colorado, and then they had this year's picture.
Yeah.
There might have been 10,000 people tops at this year's game.
Well, all the rappers were apparently busy doing concerts. They couldn't make it to Boulder.
Yeah.
That was the number one that Dion was able to import. Somehow that's supposed to make you want to play football in Colorado. But yeah, look, the hype train is going to dwindle a little bit. You go 4-8 and you have some embarrassing losses. It's like, okay, that it's a novelty, but to what extent? And I have no idea if they're going to be much better this year. Their first game is is it North Dakota State or South Dakota? I think it's North Dakota State. They could easily lose to a 1AA team in week one. I think it's on a Thursday night, Shane.
Interesting.
You lose that and you lose your fan base in week one.
Yeah, and they had Brent Beard was telling us the other day, they've had more kids in the portal than any other school. So
That's
it's
right. Yeah.
kind of interesting. Brett on the Titan MR text line, and Jack says, "Good morning, Shane. Seems like every highlight on the offensive players of the SEC that were drafted, there were Gators on defense getting toasted." Well,
Yeah.
we were historically the worst defense ever last year. I think people forget that. And
Yeah.
people still worry about who's calling plays. But we
Yeah.
can't tackle or cover or rush the passer, but people worry about who's calling the plays. They've made some additions on defense. I think they will be a lot better this year. All right, Mike. I wanted to get your thoughts. I don't know if you covered him much, but I think he's a really good player. He went really, really late. Michael Pratt from Tulane.
Yeah.
He went to the Packers. We know he's not going to start there. They have their guy. But this is another guy that I think is going to be a solid backup. If he ever gets an opportunity, who knows? But I think he's a really good quarterback. I think he's better than some of the guys that were drafted way ahead of him.
He's a Deerfield Beach kid. I know people that watched him down in South Florida, not far from where I grew up, watched him in high school. Yeah, I think that Shane, it was really weird. So you get 6 quarterbacks taken in like the first half of the first round, right? And then everybody was like, well, shoot, at this rate, Spencer Rattler might be the first pick in the second round. And Rattler falls all the way to the 5th. So we went half of the first round, second round, third round, fourth round. That's the longest gap of not having a single quarterback selected. I thought that was really interesting. Now Spencer's got some things about him. It's well documented. I never watched that damn Netflix series, but as a 17-year-old, he acted very immature, and apparently, some people are still holding that against him. I think it's the 4.95 40, the lack of size, and just the lack of wow factor that might be holding him back. But I think Spencer's going to make it. He's going to be in the league for 10 years, might be as a backup. And to your point, Pratt's kind of the same way. He doesn't have eye-popping tools, but he was really good for some good teams at Tulane and has a good enough skill set where I don't think that's a seventh round like throwaway pick. I think that's hey, this kid's going to be a backup right away. So I think absolutely he's got a chance to be a guy that's in the league for a long time. Maybe he starts here and there, but I think he'll be on an NFL roster for a while.
31 Ember on YouTube, brought to you by Quiet Plumbing, says, who do you think will be the first pick, Shane? I guess he's referring to next year's draft. I don't know. I don't look at drafts. I'm just surprised Carson Beck wouldn't be ahead of Shadur Sanders. I think it depends on who's picking first, too. It could be if the Carolina Panthers are picking first again or next year, they're not going to take a quarterback probably, unless, who knows? They could get rid of Bryce Young. You never know. It's the NFL. Crazy things happen. Mike, before we get you out of here, you been following the NBA playoffs at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any surprises? I mean, I guess what surprised me, I don't follow the NBA at all. Until the playoffs come on.
Right.
And I saw where the Timberwolves just swept the Suns. And I thought the Suns were one of these teams with all these superstars on it. What happened to them?
Yeah, I love Kevin Durant's game, but his legacy is going to be, what did he do outside of when he joined a super team that was already really good in Golden State? He didn't win anything in Oklahoma City. He didn't win anything in Brooklyn, and he hadn't done anything in Phoenix. Legacies are built at this stage of his career, and that's going to be part of it. I think, and look, the Lakers did win a game, but after the Nuggets dispose of them in 5, I think it's amazing. Like, if you've watched any of that, Jokic is so clearly the best player in that series. It's not even funny. People like LeBron and Anthony Davis, they have no answer for Jokic. None. He's going to win his 3rd MVP in 4 years. And when you watch him, he's not a highlight machine, but damn, he's good. He just, if you know the game, what he does and the stress he puts on defenses, because he has the answer for everything you do. He has a counter move for everything you do. So I never cease to be amazed at just how good he is. He's not surrounded by a great roster. He's just not. You take Jokic off that team, they're not going anywhere. But damn, he is annihilating the Lakers in that series. Everything else has been, it's been chalk, quite frankly, right? Like, the Heat, we'll talk about a Florida team. The Heat have no chance without Jimmy Butler. They're just trying to keep it competitive against the Celtics, and they did win a game, but they're going to go down in flames, no pun intended. I think overall it's pretty chalkish. The real juicy stuff gets started in the second round and beyond, Shane. That's when we have some more competitive matchups, I think.
Do you know much about Mark Daignault? I think I pronounced his name wrong, but he was an assistant under Billy Donovan here at Florida and with the Thunder. And like I said, when the playoffs started, I saw Oklahoma City Thunder as the 1 seed. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, the only person I know on their team is the kid from Kentucky. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't name one other player. That's got to be a great story. He was the NBA Coach of the Year. He was named that this weekend.
Yeah, and I do remember the tie-in to Billy. And, of course, for years, the Spurs had the guy that had ties to Florida, the front office guy, and I just forgot his name. Your listeners will know. Look, Billy surrounded himself with some pretty good people. He really did. And we shouldn't be too surprised that some of his proteges have had great success. And yeah, they were easily one of the best stories in the league. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being a top 3 MVP candidate. You know, he was going to go to Florida. Mike White, I remember him telling me specifically, uh, the day that he decommitted from Florida and went to Kentucky, I had a Florida game and we went to practice and he was just shaking his head and he's like, we had him. And then old Cal came in and we lost him. Cal did
Yeah.
that to a lot of teams, especially before NIL. Yeah, could you imagine Shea Gilgeous-Alexander playing for the
Wow.
Gators? That would have been a pretty good get.
That really would have been. All right. Last text on the Titan Mark text line. Uh, Joe wants to know your thoughts on what Alabama has done in the transfer portal in basketball.
Well, they just lost Nick Pringle to South Carolina, but they clearly were not too upset about that because the way that Nate Oates has been recruiting, um, they just figure we'll lose some, but we'll get better. Yeah, they're going to be one of those teams that's going to be loaded every year because they have a coach that everybody likes, and they've given him some resources financially. Although they'll tell you we don't spend nearly as much as some of the other programs in this league, and I could name a few examples of that. But I think just Alabama's they are on, I don't want to say autopilot, but they're going to be good every year. They just are under Nate Oates. So I'm not surprised that they're doing well in both recruiting and in the portal.
And Brandon's text on the Titan Mark text line. Today, who does Mike Morgan have playing in the Super Bowl?
I love it. No pressure. Shoot. Am I gonna turn down Kansas City for a chance at a 3P? Hard to do that. They're the same team but better. They kept Chris Jones. They kept obviously Mahomes. Kelsey's coming back. And they just added the fastest guy in the draft. So I'll take Kansas City in the AFC. In the NFC, wow. At San Francisco,
Rematch.
rematch. Seriously, who has elevated themselves in the NFC to say, oh yeah, now we're much better than San Francisco, right? Like everybody was in love with Philadelphia last year, and they were a massive disappointment. I'm not buying any stock in the Cowboys. Uh, is there anybody else I'm missing in the East, in the Central? You know, the Bears rebuild, Vikings rookie quarterback. And then the South, the worst division in the history of pro football. Whoever wins that will, they'll go like 9-8 and get bounced in the first round. So yeah, I'll go. I know it's chalk, but to me, the top 2 teams in those conferences are still Kansas City and San Fran.
All right, I keep saying we'll get you out here. One last text here on the Titan
Yeah.
Mark text line. This was an interesting one from Sheila. She wants to know what Mike does in the off season. Are you a golfer, pickleballer? What do you do?
Oh, Sheila. I love it. A personal question. Well, my likes, Sheila, candlelight sunsets, a nice bottle of Pinot, and a walk on the beach. Yeah, I've got a little more downtime this time of year and in the summer before football gets cranked back up. I do some stuff for the Braves from time to time, college baseball, and a lot of these type of shows. But I golf. I'm not good, Shane. I'd love to play with you, but I will embarrass myself, and you'll be like, is he still in the fairway? Is he gonna get on the green anytime soon? My goal is to play bogey golf. I do play pickleball from time to time. I got into that during the pandemic because I still play a ton of basketball. And I play in a league in Atlanta and I play a lot of pickup. Well, during the pandemic, you couldn't do either. And my friends are like, you should try pickleball. And I was like, this isn't bad. And I can play this till I'm 90, right?
Yeah.
So I do like that. And then I try to squeeze in vacations. My wife and I went to the Keys. We take several trips down to South Florida. We have a place down there now. So yeah, just try to cherish the time, Sheila, as best as we can.
Mike, when you play in your basketball league, do you come out in some Chuck Taylors and some knee pads and a headband?
I'm not that old yet, man. I didn't like Chuck Taylors when I was a kid. I didn't I No, I've got a pair of Kyrie's. I like the
Hmm.
3/4. High tops are too high, low tops are a broken ankle waiting to happen. So I have Nikes, either Chris Paul's or Kyrie's. I do not have a pair of Chuck Taylors, but thank you for the antiquated reference.
I know what I wanted to ask before I let you go. There was some talk last week, I believe, about the NCAA or somebody starting a group of five, like championship
Yeah,
series. I really wish they would do that. I think that would be
yeah,
cool. Obviously those guys can still play the big boys in the regular season
right.
for a good payday. But don't you agree that they should do that?
A number of your listeners have been kind enough to listen to JC and Morgan, a college football podcast that we do year round. And we've talked about this for a number of years. How cool would it be to have a Group 5 playoff? Because Group 5, in my estimation now, Shane, we can call it what it really is. It's 1AA. If you're not in the power conferences and you're not set up in the new playoff the way they are, yes, you get one team, one every year, and you'll get some money because of that. But it's a fraction of what the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC are going to get. You're just like you get the scraps. And so if like you mentioned Tulane and their quarterback. Tulane has been playing really good football, but they're never going to have a chance to win the FBS playoff.
Right.
They're barely ever going to get in. So why not let those programs play for a championship like we do at the FCS level? I'm all for that. And a TV network will gobble that up. ESPN or Fox will gobble that up, spend a bunch of money that you can filter specifically to those programs that need it the most. And I'll watch that before I watch an XFL or UFL game. I mean, if you're a college football junkie like we are, and that's on, hell yeah, I'll watch it. So I would love to see that. I think it's a great idea.
Yep. Well, good stuff as always, my man. Appreciate your time. Enjoy your
We
walk
covered
on
it
the
all,
feeds.
Shane. We covered it all.
We did. That's what we do on this show. Our listeners, they throw all kinds of questions at us. So
I love it. You got one of the smartest, best audiences. I don't just say this for cheap applause. The smartest, best audiences of any PodUp show in the continental United States. And I don't think that's a bold take. I think that's the right take.
well, I appreciate it, Mike. Have a great week, man. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. Be well.
That's Mike Morgan. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. He's brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Take a quick time out, come back. Got a bunch of texts and stuff I want to get with you guys on. You're watching and listening PodUp Matthews in the Morning. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union.
Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Dave & Buster's Eat, Drink, Play, Watch. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker Sporting Goods. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse-Ogre State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. This day in sports in 1986 NFL Draft, Auburn running back Bo Jackson, first picked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I forgot about that. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Also on the Titan MR text line, Pontevedra Bull Gator. He says 18 years tomorrow, April 30th, 2006, my buddy Chris Couch won the Zurich Classic. Is the Moonlight Tour where you play? I don't know what the Moonlight Tour is. But yeah, Chris Couch. Speaking of the Zurich, it's now a team event. Roy McIlroy and Shane Lowry win it. And then it turned into a live event. I don't know if people saw it on Twitter. They went to the after party there at the course with all the fans, and Rory did a little karaoke, singing little Journey. So Google it. It's pretty funny. But that's looked like it turned into a live event. But looked like Roy was having a good time. Good for him. That was a good win. They came from behind. The team, I can't even remember the guys they were playing there in the playoff. Those guys were putting like me. God, they were bad. Cost them the tournament. Radware is a family-owned business that prides itself on excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. Softball. I don't know if people saw softball yesterday. It was unbelievable. We were down to our last. First of all, it's the seventh inning. We're down. Can't remember if we were down 1 or 2. Kendra Falby, God bless her, tremendous player. She steals on her own from second base. We have our best hitter up, Skylar Wallace, at the plate. We got first and second. I don't think there was anybody out. Maybe one out. May have been 2 outs. Hell, I can't remember. She stole third. Was clearly out, but the girl missed the tag. And then Skylar strikes out the very next pitch. And then Jocelyn Erickson hits a bomb for us to take the lead, and then the floodgates open. So it was a tremendous come from behind win for the Lady Gators. They are 1 game out of second, 2 games out of first place. They're still in the hunt to win the regular season SEC tournament. A lot has to happen to go their way, but been a tremendous year for them. And boy, the SEC tournament's going to be a bear. 31 M. Burr on YouTube says, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Shane, did you see the video of Joe Milton throwing an orange 100 yards as a former NFL quarterback? How does this skill transfer to the field? Oh, and if you can throw an orange 100 yards, that means you will go into the Hall of Fame. Just kidding. I don't know how you throw an orange. That seems like that really hurt your arm throwing it that far. Look, Joe Milton can throw a ball a long ways, probably farther than anybody I've ever seen, and throw it harder than anybody I've ever seen. I don't think there's any way in the world Joe Milton ever starts a game in the National Football League. No way. Unless half your team is hurt. That's the only way. But I think he got drafted by the Patriots. He'll probably be their third guy for a year or two, and then they'll cut him, and then won't play anywhere else. That's just my assessment on what I've seen of him. I have nothing against the kid. I just don't think he's a very good quarterback. Some people might think he's pretty good, but I don't. I tried to tell y'all last year, Tennessee had no chance playing him. And we need to be thankful that Josh Heupel didn't make that change. I don't know why he continued playing him. Baseball, if you missed the deep move by the center fielder from Arkansas, you got to go look at it. It's truly remarkable that play worked. And of course, it had to work against us. This is it. Well, hang on. We just got a text on the Titan MR text line from William. He says, yeah, I saw Rory singing with the fans in New Orleans. It was actually pretty cool. I agree. Looked like he was having a good time. They were pounding some beers, him and Big Shane Lowry on stage. They were singing Don't Stop Believing. And really cool. All right. There's some other text and stuff. Mark on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says Warren Sapp is on that staff at Colorado now. That should help. I don't think Sapp's ever coached at the collegiate level. And I know Sapp. Sapp was a tremendous player. I don't know what kind of coach he is or can be. It's hard. I mean, there's a lot that goes into coaching than just being a great player. And I don't understand that hire. So I think Colorado is going to be a mess this year. And then Christopher says Mertz will be an excellent backup QB. Yeah, he's everything you want to be on your roster at the next level because again, I've told y'all multiple times because I was a backup my whole career. Let's be honest. You do not practice. You sit in meetings for hours and hours, never watching yourself on tape. And then you go out to practice and you stand there for hours and don't hardly ever get a rep. But they have to have confidence and they have to believe in you that if something happens to that starter who's getting all the reps, that you can run the offense. You can spit out the plays. You know where to go with the football. Are you going to be as good as a start? Probably not, because when you look at the National Football League, it's where the best players in the world are playing that sport. And there's only about 10 of them, 10 quarterbacks in the entire league that are elite. Everybody else is just kind of a guy that can be, you got to be serviceable. You got to be able to help your team because, if everybody had that elite quarterback, there would be more parity in the National Football League. There's not. 31 Ember says, as soon as Shadur leaves, so does Dion. I don't know where Dion's going to go coach, though. He might as well stay there if he really wants to be a coach. All right, tomorrow's program will have Buddy Martin, and we're supposed to have another special guest as well. As I mentioned, softball had a rough outing last time against FSU. We were leading 3-0 going into the fifth and got run ruled 12-3. So I think we'll have a little bad taste in our mouth when we travel up there. Wednesday, baseball plays tomorrow night, big series this weekend. So hope everybody had a great weekend. A lot of sports going on right now. We'll let JC fill us in on Wednesday on the hockey updates. I think his Lightning and Stars are struggling. But hope everybody has a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.